I resented my dad after my parents got divorced, because my mom fed me lies, but now I know the truth about how she left him for his best friend, so I'm leaving her to make it up to my dad. My mom had been married to my dad for 9 years before she cheated and left him for his best friend, who is now my stepdad. My father served in the army, and his best friend was this rich guy who I saw hanging out with my mom at that time. During the divorce, my mom told me that my dad was physical, controlling, and emotionally unavailable, which was why she was leaving him. She said my dad treated her badly, called her names, and didn't love her. At the time, I was only 10 years old. My mom got primary custody, and my dad was stuck paying child support. I only got to see my dad 2 weekends per month. After that, I held some resentment towards my dad. I dreaded when it was time to see him. He had sold what used to be our house, moved back to his hometown, opened a mechanic shop, and lived there. He loved to drink and always tried to sober up when I came to stay with him. He was miserable, lonely, and depressed. He always tried to clean up his house when I went to stay with him, even though it still smelled like alcohol, gunpowder, gasoline, and car oils. Sometimes, I found dirty laundry stuffed in the laundry room. When I turned 15, I started to see him less. I refused to stay with him and made up excuses. I only visited him a few times a year. One day, I went to visit him without informing him and found him drinking while watching a football game. He was surprised to see me and quickly started getting rid of his beer cans, cleaning his kitchen, and asking if I was hungry so he could order pizza. I lashed out at him, telling him that's why mom left him because he was so miserable and couldn't keep his life together. I felt guilty afterward. He loves old classic muscle cars, and when I turned 18, he got me a 1970 Chevrolet Chevelle SS, which he had fixed himself. Later, my mom and I sold it and got a Honda Civic. Last week, I came to visit my mom, planning to stay for the weekend. On Saturday night, I overheard my mom and stepdad talking about what happened 12 years ago, bragging about their affair and not once regretting how it affected my dad. All they said was they felt sorry for him. I couldn't help but cry. I wanted to confront her, but I couldn't bring myself to do it. I wanted to call her names, insult her, but I didn't have the strength. I was full of mixed emotions, but I felt guilty the most. All this time, I held resentment toward my dad, thinking he was the bad guy, but he was only the victim of my mom's affair. He never recovered from the affair due to his depression, anxiety issues, and PTSD. And all the time I thought he faked caring about me, he genuinely cared for me. He always tried to stay strong and smile for me. I left the following day and found my dad at his mechanic shop and hugged him. I was crying, and he was puzzled. I kept saying sorry repeatedly. When he managed to calm me down, I told him everything and apologized even more. When I asked why he didn't fight my mom for my custody, he told me that he knew his depression, anxiety issues, plus his PTSD would make him unfit parents. He never wanted to ruin the relationship between me and my mom because he knew I loved my mom, and his ex-best friend loved me and would take care of me more than he would. He said it was not my fault, forgave me, and was happy I found out. I want to make it up to my dad, but I don't know how. What can I do? Update. First, thanks to all those who took the time to comment and offer support. As some of you said, there are two sides to every story, so I decided to listen to my dad's side. He admitted to being distant and unaffectionate after his last deployment due to his PTSD, but the affair had been going on while he was deployed. A few days after my post, I confronted my mom. She was defensive at first, saying I was ungrateful for what she did for me and that she had simply protected me from my father. She called him a few names. I didn't want to argue and had already chosen my next words carefully. I told her, my father is a good man who was broken by the betrayal of the two people he trusted the most, and worst of all, you turned his own daughter against him. I appreciate and am grateful for everything you've done, but it's time I choose the parent who put his daughter's needs first, even if it meant making hard sacrifices, and not the one who wanted the daughter to satisfy her own needs. Goodbye, Mom. I will keep in touch. Before I left, tears had built up in her eyes, and she just remained silent. She has tried to reach out to me, but I either ignore her or ask her to stop disturbing me. I don't want to block her, but my message is loud and clear. My aunt has recently reached out to me, saying my mom is depressed. Well, her husband can take care of her. As for my dad, most of you suggested I sell my Civic and buy the Chevy Chevelle SS back. I couldn't find the person I sold it to, but I decided to look for old, worn-out muscle cars to fix up. I had been searching for a while with the help of a few friends and people online. Almost 2 weeks ago, I was lucky and found an old, wrecked 1970 Dodge Charger. I sold the Civic to afford the Charger. My dad was kind of upset at first, but when I told him the reason, he brightened up. He's been more than happy to show me how to fix it. I bought an apartment an hour away from his mechanic shop. One person suggested I do a makeover at his place. I've been making time to renovate and do a makeover with the help of my friends from college who are studying interior design. It took a little convincing since my dad felt embarrassed, but he finally joined in. Now, every day after college, I visit him, and on weekends, I spend time with him. We talk about anything, mostly about my life. He likes soccer and is a big Arsenal fan. I keep him company during match days, pick the opponent's team to add some fun, and am learning a bit about football. Since I sold my car, he has allowed me to use his 1977 Pontiac Firebird, which he's had since I was 11. As long as I can remember, he has never let anyone drive it. Since I've been around more often, he has stopped his heavy drinking, maybe indulging a little during game nights, but who can blame us? Thanks for your help, everyone.